How this works, I will show you one simple point. That means how do we configure the parameters and how do we use. Generally, parameters are defined in the route path. Parameters are defined in the route path. How do we define parameters in the route path? We have to just use a path, and the path contains your path name and slash. It contains colon parameter 1 and again slash colon parameter 2. So you can add any number of parameters in this way. And which component? You have to define the component. We have to define the component, configure the component. So component, and you know that component name. So which component to access? That is how we define the parameters. And generally, parameters are configured actually. Parameters are configured in the route path. Configured in the route path. In this way, parameters are configured. So this is the parameter name. Actually, these are formal parameters. So which are formal parameters. So actual values into parameters are passed from URL or from link. So from link href are passed from URL or link href. So or you can simply say that router link. So that means how the actual values are passed. Actual values into parameter. You configured the parameters. How do we pass the values into those parameters? To pass the values into those parameters, we have to use a router link. And in the router link, we have to define the name. You have to define the name and slash. So value 1, value 2, like this. You can configure in this way. And here the link is clicked. That means when user clicks this link, then what will happen? These values are stored in these parameters. That means what will happen is, so param 1 is having val 1. Param 2 is having val 2. That's how the values are stored into those parameters. Now you can access and use the parameters in any component. In any component, we can access and use the parameters. How we can access and use the parameters? Generally, you can access and use the parameters in any component by using activated route. That means we have to create an object of route. It is of type activated route type. And through this route, you can access the parameter. To access the parameter, we have to use route snapshot. So we have to use route snapshot dot param map method and get that parameter name. So the parameter name. So you have to define the parameter name. It will get the value from that particular parameter, and it will return the value from the parameter. So parameters and their values are configured. You want to access those parameters and use in your component. Then you have to use a route snapshot, and through the route snapshot, you can capture the parameter value and use its value by using the get method. Parameter map will map to the specific parameter name and gets the value. gets the value. So route snapshot allows you to read the specific URI. URL means it will read the complete path. URI means the specific path. So that is the technique that we use to read the route parameters. So these are the steps. First step, you configure a path with parameters. Okay. And pass parameters. Okay. Then collect the parameters and use them. So let's see this basic point first. Then we will create one example with that. First, we will see how it works. Then we can create a example by using this technique, right? Then we can create one genuine example for that. So initially, how we define this, how we configured this. So let's go to the components here. So in the components, so I am configuring a simple component is, yeah. So in the components, I'm adding a new component here. Let's add one new component here. So to add the component, make sure that you are in the app folder. So open the app folder open in integrated terminal. So app folder opens in integrated terminal. I told you that we are working in workspace. In the workspace, you have to generate inside the app folder. Here, ng generate component, some search. Okay, skip test equal to true. Skip test equal to true. Okay, search component I am designing. So we are example here, simple basic example. Add a new component by name search. So ng generate component search, and the skip test is equal to true. Okay. After defining this, now what we have to do is we have to define path for this component. So in the path, so let's define a path for the component. So we need to add a path, and path is some search. Search is the path for that component. And the component, which component it has to get? Search component. It should get the search component. It should access the search component. Okay. Now this search component is expecting some parameters. So how do we configure the parameters? So this is how we configure the parameters. That means, so slash question colon, and here I am defining the parameter name. Parameter name, suppose ID. Okay, slash colon name. Okay, slash colon price. We can configure the parameters. Now, once you configured the parameters, actually sometimes anybody may ask you a question like, how many parameters I can define? Actually, there is no limit for the parameters. It is query string. Length will be the limit. I think you know when you learn web technologies, the maximum length of parameter can be up to how much? 2078 characters. You learned anywhere you heard about this? Anywhere you heard? Yeah. 2078. That is the maximum length of characters that you can pass in the query string actually. It's not like how many parameters. It is like how much length for query string in URL. That is the limit actually. So that is a general concept. And here important is